Picture this. You step outside and the air physically hurts your lungs. It is 115 degrees. The ground beneath you radiates heat like an oven. Your air conditioning has just failed, and a sudden, quiet panic sets in. When a modern heat wave strikes, our immediate instinct is to retreat. We hide in climate-controlled boxes, pour ice water, and hope the power grid holds. Honestly, it's a completely reasonable response. But here's the thing. Your ancient ancestors didn't have a thermostat, and they didn't just hide in a cave hoping for the best. They lived through some of the most brutal, volcanic megadroughts in the history of our planet. We think of extreme weather as a uniquely modern problem, but the truth is, our ancestors lived through periods of climate volatility that would make our worst summer days look like a pleasant spring morning, and they didn't have a single fan or ice cube to help them through it. So how did they do it? How did we become the only naked, sweating primate on Earth? And is our modern obsession with staying cool actually making us fragile? The answer takes us back to a world where extreme heat wasn't a threat to avoid. It was our species' ultimate biological superpower. To understand this superpower, we have to look at how other animals deal with the sun. It's actually kind of hilarious how bad most mammals are at cooling down. Take a look at a cheetah, a lion, or even your dog at home. They all share a massive biological limitation. They can't sweat. To cool down, they have to pant. But panting is a highly restrictive system. The animal has to stop moving, open its mouth, and rapidly exchange shallow breaths just to cool the blood flowing to its brain. If a cheetah keeps running in extreme heat, its brain will literally start to cook, leading to rapid, fatal heat stroke. But then, our ancestors made a radical biological deal. We got rid of our body fur, and we covered our skin in millions of eccrine sweat glands. Most animals only have apocrine sweat glands, which produce a thick, oily sweat that clings to their fur. But our eccrine glands secrete mostly water and salt. It's a genius design. As the dry wind of the savanna blows over our bare, wet skin, the sweat evaporates, drawing the heat directly out of our blood vessels. A fit human can sweat up to 12 liters of water in a single day. Think about that. It's a biological miracle. Think about what that fur loss actually meant. For a primate, fur is protection. It prevents scratches, shields against sunburn, and keeps you warm at night. Giving it up was a massive gamble. But evolution decided that being able to dump heat was far more important than being cozy. We became the naked ape, and in doing so, we unlocked an entirely new way of living. If evolution hasn't accidentally selected you out of the gene pool yet, take a second to hit the like button and subscribe. Then let's get back to finding out how our ancestors pulled this off. Shedding our fur was only the beginning. To truly conquer the midday sun, we also had to do something even wilder. We stood up. When our ancestors started walking on two legs, they solved a massive engineering problem. Consider a four-legged animal, like a zebra. When the sun is directly overhead, its entire back is exposed to the beating rays of the sun. But by standing upright, we reduced our direct sun exposure by nearly 60%. And here is the really cool detail. By elevating our heads several feet off the scorching ground, we lifted our massive heat-sensitive brains into cooler, moving air currents. When you stand up, you aren't just changing your perspective, you are changing your microclimate. The air closest to the ground on a hot day is the hottest, baked by the soil. By standing, our heads were elevated into a completely different layer of air, where the breeze was faster and cooler. Without even realizing it, we had built our own personal, portable shade system. And this combination, upright posture, hairless skin, and millions of active sweat glands, gave us a terrifying advantage. It basically turned us into the Terminators of the animal kingdom. While lions, leopards, and wild dogs were forced to collapse under the shade of acacia trees, completely incapacitated by the heat, human hunters did something unthinkable. They walked out into the open, scorching midday sun. They would find an antelope, startle it, and begin a slow, relentless jogging pursuit. The antelope would sprint away, leaving the humans in the dust. But because it couldn't sweat, it had to stop to pant. But the humans didn't stop. They just kept jogging, sweating, and evaporating heat as they ran. Every time the antelope tried to rest, those same hairless apes would appear on the horizon. They don't sprint, they just keep their steady, terrifying pace. It is a slow-motion, psychological horror film for the animal, and it only ends when its muscles physically lock up from heat stroke. This is persistence hunting. It is a strategy that only worked because we evolved to be the ultimate heat-enduring machines. But then, the heat became too extreme. Around 150,000 years ago, extreme climate shifts threatened to wipe humanity off the map. The lakes dried up, the grasslands turned to dust, and the interior of Africa became an unlivable wasteland. The surviving populations of humans were forced to flee. They migrated to the ocean coasts, specifically to places like Pinnacle Point on the southern coast of South Africa. Here, they found a completely new way of life. The ocean provided a cooling, stable sanctuary from the extreme heat waves of the interior, and more importantly, the coastal waters provided an abundant, predictable supply of shellfish. Unlike hunting large game, which had become nearly impossible in the drought, harvesting mussels and sea snails from the tidal rocks required minimal energy. And here is the really surprising part. This shoreline diet turned out to be the ultimate brain food. Shellfish are packed with DHA, iodine, and omega-3 fatty acids, the exact micronutrients required to fuel and expand our massive, complex brains. Think about the irony of this. A catastrophic climate crisis, an extreme heat wave that threatened to end the human story before it even truly began, is the exact thing that forced us to the water. It forced us to change our diet, which in turn gave us the biological resources to build the brains we have today. We are literally only here, with our complex languages, our technology, and our culture, because our ancestors were driven to the sea by a scorching, hostile environment. But today, we have engineered heat entirely out of our lives. The moment the temperature hits 80 degrees, we turn on the air conditioning, retreat indoors, and sit perfectly still. It's comfortable, sure, but by doing this, we are actively deactivating our body's natural thermal defenses. Think about it. When your body is never exposed to heat, it stops producing heat shock proteins, which are basically specialized cellular chaperones that protect your organs and brain cells from thermal damage. Your cardiovascular system gets lazy. Your body literally loses its capacity to efficiently regulate its own blood flow. When an extreme heat wave inevitably strikes today, we panic. Our modern, sedentary bodies have completely forgotten how to sweat, how to adapt, and how to survive. We have built a world of absolute comfort, where we treat any temperature fluctuation as a crisis. But we forgot that we are the descendants of the ultimate heat-enduring primates. Our hairless skin, our millions of sweat glands, and our upright skeletons were specifically shaped by the fire of the African savanna. We think of sweating as something gross, or something to be washed away with clinical deodorants. But sweating is your birthright. It is the physical proof of your ancestral survival. When you feel yourself sweating on a hot summer day, you are running the exact same biological software that allowed a tiny group of African primates to conquer the globe. And speaking of surviving the extreme environments of the prehistoric world, if you want to explore more hidden evolutionary mysteries about our bodies and how our ancestors managed to stay alive, click the video on your screen right now.